Hello. So we're back again talking about the Demon Cycle series. In this case, the third book, The Daylight War, which is another excellent book. It did do one odd thing with telling the backstory. It changed things up a little. In the first book, the backstory was the main character, so it didn't really feel like you were back in time so much as you're just following him from a young age moving forward. In the second book, the first huge chunk of it was dedicated to telling the backstory of the Jardir character. Since we're stepping back in time, it felt like it was actually stepping back in time to tell this story and then jumping forward again into the present. This one did the same thing with Enerva, who is Jardir's wife, but it was weird. The prologue doesn't work as a prologue really because it's introing Enerva as a child. And that's not really a good use of the prologue, especially when then you jump back into the present for 6 chapters, only to jump back into Enerva's backstory for another 4 chapters. Now, to Brett's credit, he still kept it together, with the exception of the prologue, so that you're not being jarred out in and out of flashbacks. And when it jumped back, which is chapter 7, I believe, it made sense within the context of what was happening in chapter 6. I still wish that the prologue, if you wanted one, didn't have anything to do with Enerva, and the 5 chapters that did, being the prologue and chapters 7 through 10, were just together at the start of the book, because that's what we've become accustomed to from Brett, and I really like that format. It works well and isn't jarring to be forced to change time periods constantly. So after the climax of the last book, Arlen learned some new tricks. I'm not sure if Brett always intended to expand the magic system, or if he wanted to give himself more room to work with at the end of the second book and chose to do so. But it works quite well and feels like the system was always meant to have it. So, regardless of if it was intended to have this expansion to the magic system or not, he did an excellent job of integrating it in and making it feel like it belongs. In addition to that, we spend a lot of time with Roger in this book, which is great. The Roger's character is fun, and we get to see his own special brand of magic get expanded. Before, it was always really just a shield. It worked in place of the warding system to protect people. The upside being that you don't have to set up a circle of wards. The downside being he has to keep playing for it to work. But in this book, we saw an expansion of that system where his shield became a weapon. Brett also used that opportunity to flesh out some more history that we had been missing, give us a more in-depth world building experience by tying in things from the past in this expansion to the way the fiddle magic works, or I suppose the song, the music magic. The first half of the book is, I suppose they're still technically in the Daylight War, which is the name of the book, of course, but it's not really about the Daylight War. It's more about getting everyone into position. Because this book is where the first war starts, which is the actual war with the demons, the Corlings. Before, it wasn't really a war so much as a battle of attrition. The humans hid in their settlements, protected by wards, and anyone that wasn't got eaten. But with Arlen discovering the combat wards in book 1 and expanding his understanding of the magic system in book 2 and mastering that in book 3, and Roger expanding his mastery of music magic in this book as well. They're building armies with the express purpose of killing demons. And the demons have taken notice. Now, of course, they took notice in the last book as well, but in the last book, they were taking notice in just something's changed, let's go figure it out. Now we understand what has changed. Let's go fix this problem. Because the demons view the humans as cattle. They're a food source to be carefully cultivated, at least to the intelligent demons that control the hive, as opposed to the unintelligent ones that are really just animals with magic. So there is one part of the book that I didn't like as much as the rest. The last 3 chapters are spent setting up a confrontation between Arlen and Jardir. Great, we always knew something like this was going to happen. The problem is it cliffhangered hard. And I'm not a fan of cliffhangers. I understand their purpose. A cliffhanger gets the reader to come back. This is book 3. We've already read the first 3 books. We're going to read the 4th book. You don't need to get us to come back. That's just going to happen. So why do that to the reader when you're already not the fastest author when it comes to putting out new books? That's just torture. I really wish that this was simply the last 3 chapters were simply pushed to the start of the next book, which would have worked, or the last 2 chapters were pushed to that, and they did something else, or nothing at all. They really could have just ended this book 2 or 3 chapters early and called it a day. But instead, he cliffhangered it really hard in the middle of a story. And I guess there's 2 kinds of cliffhanger, and this is the kind that I really hate in a book. The first is, it's a cliffhanger, but the book has wrapped up all of its goals. Everything, the plot of the book has concluded, and the cliffhanger is kind of soft. It's just setting up some expectations of the next book without really any problematic, but I need to know what happened in the cliffhanger. And the other kind is, of course, this kind, where they set up a big, massive thing, and then the book just ends before we're told what the resolution is. Which, again, for the first book of a series from a relatively unknown author, sure, I get it. But book 3 of a 5-book series? Come on. We don't need a cliffhanger. We're gonna read the next book. What's the point? That isn't to say the last 3 chapters weren't well written. They were. It's just that I don't like that kind of cliffhanger, especially when it's the purpose of it doesn't need to be there. And overall, it was still a great book. Not my favorite. I still think the first is the best of the 3 that I've covered so far. But it was still good. It didn't have that annoying fall off that you can see in some series, especially ones that are running past a trilogy, where the author is struggling to come up with story. It's clear that the story has been plotted out and there isn't any real padding. What we're being told is important. There are a lot of characters, there are a lot of moving parts, so the book size is, of course, growing. But that's not a bad thing as long as the author is willing to bend that many words on a single book and not pad it out. But yeah, those were my thoughts on Daylight War. If you like this video, please leave a like. If not, a dislike. And if you read the series, let me know what your thoughts on the Daylight War were in the comment section below. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.